In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can triple dial your Facebook leads as soon as they come in to get them on the phone and book an appointment. I'm going to be using three softwares here today, primarily outside of Meta, obviously. So we have N8N, which is what you're looking at right now. This is the brains of the operation that's going to actually be performing the automation with all the decision trees. Next, we have our GHL form submission automation. So Facebook lead comes in, webhook is fired. That starts this whole N8N workflow. And then we have retail, which is the actual AI voice agent that once the lead is on the phone, this agent will be the one that is speaking to them, and it follows all of our prompts here with the goal being to book an appointment. So let's hop in. First thing is GHL. I think GHL is really popular amongst you guys. If you've done anything with automations, you're probably working with GHL. So we've got our Facebook page connected to our GHL sublocation. We have our form integrated with all the fields mapped. So basically what happens here when a Facebook lead form is submitted on my call flow page, which is the name brand I'm using for my voice AI agent services, which, by the way, if you guys want me to build you an AI automation like this, just drop a comment below or hit me up on my channel details. I got my email in there. So if someone sees my Facebook ads on CallFlow and they respond saying, hey, I want one of these agents in my business, and that's on any of my forms, then that trigger is going to fire, and then it's going to be the webhook here, the custom webhook, custom post, and we're calling this URL here, which we gather from our N8N automation, which is our URL right here, the post. So we just paste that in there, no authorization. It's just a JSON body where we send the customer first name, last name, business, niche, phone, email, state, and then current lead handling procedure. So if they're missing calls or if they're following up instantly, we want to know that. Basically, it takes all this data, then packages it up and sends it over to N8N. From there, the first step is going to be formatting that phone number correctly so that retail can properly call it. Retail is only able to call E164 phone numbers. So E164 phone numbers are phone numbers that are formatted to the +1 and then the phone number after that. So no parentheses, and then it has the country code in there. So basically what this code right here does is it takes that raw phone number and then it adds the +1 in there and then removes any of the parentheses. And then it also does a second thing, very important here, that if there's one digit too many, one digit too little, if the phone number is 3 digits, whatever it may be, it'll return invalid format. And then this if function here will say, so if it is equal to invalid format and that is true, then we'll collect the time right now. This is just a simple JavaScript from ChatGPT about collecting the right now time so we can log it in our call disposition sheet here. So basically, if the format is invalid, we branch up here, collect the time, we log it as invalid, and then we don't dial on it. That protects our phone numbers and then reduces the carrier flag risk so we're not dialing on bad numbers. But if it is false and it is a good format, then we're going to find the lead's time zone because we don't want to be calling them at midnight, basically. So this code, once again, just ChatGPT JavaScript. We're going to find the time zone, and then it's also going to give us the start time. So if the lead's time zone based on their state, remember because we're sending state here so we can gather their time zone. So it's going to find the lead's time zone based on the state, and then if it is between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m., it'll just fire the start at right now. But say if it's at 9:01 p.m., it'll fire the start at, it'll tell us the start at time should be 8 a.m. the next day. Once again, I don't know how to write JavaScript. This is just ChatGPT giving me this here. Okay, so once it's found the lead's time zone and given us that start at figure, we want to resume at specified time and then that JSON start at from the previous node here, the find lead time zone. All right, so now that we've figured out what the lead time zone is and we understand that it's the correct time to call them, we want to initiate that call. So this is where retell first comes into play. So we have a post to the URL. This URL is going to be the same for you. So it's https api.retellai.com v2 create phone call. Generic credential type, bearer authorization, and then we want to add the retell key. So this was you just hit this create new credential here with that drop down. So in order to get your key, you go to retell, you go to home, you go to settings, API keys. I've already created one, so I can just copy this. But if you don't have any keys in here, just create a key there. And then you would add that key in there, and then you can save it as retell key. So just paste that, my retell, whatever the token is in there. And then you can change this to retell key. And then you would save. That way you can just use it in future steps without having to always copy and paste it. You just save the key there. Okay, so now basically we're calling this URL and then we're using this key as our permission to get into retell so they can bill us accordingly. They know it's us. This key is unique to us. Okay, so now we're sending body, JSON, specific body using JSON. And you can do you can do like fields and stuff. I just have started to get familiar with the JSON, and that's what I'm using over here at Go High Level. So I just kind of want to keep in that same theme here. So we got to send a couple things to retell. So we're going to send the from number, which is what the agent is going to use to dial. So to get that, we can come back to retell. We can go to phone numbers, call flow, and then you can just copy this phone number, whatever phone number you want to use, and then you would just paste it in there in between the quotations. And look at that, it's E164, so we've got to make sure that it's the same here. And then the to number is going to be that formatted E164 phone number, so make sure if you're calling this specific expression here that you've gone to your E164 format and you've selected the correct one. You can just kind of drag this over here and do that. This is not a live workflow, so I can't drag and drop anything in here besides what I already have. But you get the idea. Okay, override _agent _ID, and then you want to come back to retell, and you go to agents. This is my call flow outbound agent. Okay, so we're in my call flow outbound agent, and then we can just copy this agent ID right here. So you just want to copy that. And then in between the quotations again, you just want to paste that in there. Once again, to get the JSON formatting, just put this into ChatGPT and tell it all the things you need here. Next, we have our retell LLM _dynamic _variables. These are going to be all the things that we're sending from here, and one additional special variable that we want to send to just add a little bit more personalization, make it feel like they're talking to a human. So we've got all of this data. Those are our variables that we've indicated here in our retell single prompt. So we're just saying, hey, here are our inputs from the webhook. These are all the things that you're going to receive. And then, further down, we're also referencing those. So like, hello, customer F-name, are you there? Hi, customer F-name. So basically, it's just going to plug those things in after it receives it from the webhook. So we have retell LLM dynamic variables, and then we have another squiggly bracket, an indentation, and we have all of them. So customer F-name, dragging and dropping that from our initial webhook. Customer L-name, drag and drop. Business niche, drag and drop. Phone, email, state, drag and drop all that. And then also a temp number. So a temp number is going to be 1 because this is our call lead 1 node. And in my retell agent, I have specific instructions for it about leaving voicemails and then referencing call attempts. So only leave a voicemail when attempt number is exactly 1, 6, or 12. This is going to cut down on costs, and if you're triple dialing someone, you don't need to leave 3 voicemails. You can leave a voicemail the first time and then hammer them on the second and third time. And then I'm eventually going to build this out where it's only 12, so 12 will just be the final one. Just be like, hey, even says it in here. Hey, just one last quick follow-up regarding your request. So it adds a little bit more personalization, and I believe will increase the contact and conversion rate. So that's our attempt number. That's just going to be static, because this is always going to be the first time we're attempting for any lead. But all of these others are going to be dynamic because it's going to be based on the webhook coming in. Okay, so now we've sent, basically if this executes, we've sent that data to Retail. Retail is in the process of calling them. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wait 60 seconds, and then we're going to attempt to get call details. So this function is super important here because we've called them, and then something's happened. So they're either currently on the phone or the call has ended. So basically that's kind of our first decision tree. Are they on the phone or has the call ended? That's what we're going to look for here. So real quick, just touching on that. So to get out of this loop of always checking if it's ended or no contact, we're going to check if it's, so if call status from call details 1 is equal to ended, or call status is equal to not connected, which means the phone call has ended, so there's going to be some disposition about it. Then if it's true, we're going to check if it's ended, check voicemail, check appointment booked, all those things. But if it's not true, if they're still on the phone, and then we're going to check again. We're going to attempt to get call details again. If there's no call details, it'll just keep going. Once again, just keeps on checking, checking, checking until the disposition is either ended or not connected. Any other disposition wouldn't exist because they're still on the phone and we wouldn't have call details. So we're going to get end date and time local. So this is going to print basically 2 things. It's going to print out our end date and our end time as separate fields. It's going to limit the items to number 1. So just in case it checks and checks and checks, it's only going to keep one of them. And then it goes to our call ended. So now let's say the call's ended. In this specific example, let's just say there's a voicemail. This is kind of where it gets a little complex and hairy. Okay, so call is either ended or not connected. True. Is it ended? True. Is there a voicemail? True. Then we'll log the voicemail. So basically this just gathers the date, time, name, phone, email, all the data, and then it puts it into our disposition list, and then it would have a disposition come out to voicemail reached. And then once it does that, logs the voicemail, and then immediately it's going to be calling them again. All right, let's back up a little bit. So if it's ended and it's not connected, means the phone call, the lead didn't answer, and there was no voicemail, we're just going to log the not connected. Call status would be not connected down here. And then we're going to call the lead again. And then if it's okay. So that's not connected. Okay, let's go back to ended. Ended is true. Voicemail is false. So that means a call happened. One of 2 things happened. We either booked an appointment or we got put on our internal DNC list, essentially. I guess there are technically 3 things that could happen. They could book an appointment, they could say don't call me again, and they could say call me back in an hour. So to avoid that third call me back in an hour one, which would just add significant complexity to this automation, we've added a instruction in here, the no callback policy. So Angie must never agree to call the lead back later. Can you call me later? Blah, blah, blah. Basically, if they say call me in an hour, it's like, okay, great. Well, let me book you an appointment for an hour. Let me get all your details, all that stuff. So the only allowed outcomes of a live conversation are a booked appointment or a polite exit. And that's just going to simplify our automation over here a little bit better. Okay, so appointment booked, true. We're going to log the appointment, and then we're not going to call them again because we've achieved our goal. Appointment booked is false, and then DNC is true. This one was a little bit trickier to figure out because there's not an actual call status disposition of not to be called. So basically what I did from the call details, in the call analysis and the call summary, it always uses this verbiage of, Anthony requested not to be called again. So I have it set up here. So if call summary contains not to be called, we're going to call that we'll say true, and then we'll log the DNC, date, time, disposition, DNC, and then we're not going to call them again. You could get super, if you're really concerned about DNC, you could also put a filter before your call to just check against your disposition to see if they're on the DNC list, and if they are, you could kick them out, but we're not going to do that here. And then basically it just goes into the same thing 2 more times. So we have call lead 2, same routing, same checking, same disposition tracking, and then we have our call lead 3, same thing, waiting, checking, disposition, and then nothing happens. I'm eventually going to add text messages in here and a few other functions I'm thinking about, but this is the primary bare bones of the N8N, how that automation works. GHL, super simple. And then retail, I'll touch on a few things in here. Basically, use ChatGPT to create this prompt here. You're going to also want to ask ChatGPT to return the responses in .txt. That way you get all these markdowns. It just helps with prompting and educating your agent a little bit better. But we go into the role, we tell it what webhooks inputs they're going to get from the webhook. Business niche normalization. So if someone types in, we're in our lead form, we're asking them what niche are you in. If they say I clean solar panels on houses, then this would basically flip that into something like cleaning solar panels, instead of saying, hey John, I'm calling you about your I clean solar panels for houses business. That just sounds ridiculous. So we're going to normalize that into something you would actually repeat. Time zone logic, this is going to be for booking the appointment. So we're always booking the appointment in the lead's time zone, but it's going to be checking it against my time zone since these people will be meeting with me. Tone engine, I haven't really tested this out, but if attempts come in as 1, 2, and 3, urgent, helpful, and then it just kind of gets more persistent, a little bit friendly, and then more casual, like, hey, this is lost, but I just wanted to check if you still wanted to do this. Attempt logic, do not mention past attempts. I've tried reaching you a couple times if it's greater than these numbers. Primary objective, book a demo appointment. Call type, outbound call to a fresh Facebook lead, great. Max call length, 5 minutes. Voice and style, call connection rules. So basically we want the lead to pick up the phone and say hello, and then once Angie, my AI here, registers that they've said hello, then it will go into the entire workflow there. And then it's using those dynamic variables we talked about. So hi, customer name, it's Angie with CallFlow, I just got your request. Quick question, mainly looking for an agent to handle inbound, outbound, or both. And then got it, and then it kind of repeats their choice there. Got it, we can help you with inbound. How many calls or leads you get in a typical week? And then it just also kind of just gives them a little pitch here. Like, awesome, yeah, we can definitely help you with outbound. We build agents that call new leads instantly, blah, blah, blah. Booking flow. Next up is quick Google Meet demo. See if we can be a good fit for your business. Mornings or afternoons work better for you. Give them a binary choice. You don't want to be like, what day works for you? It's like, well, if you give leads too much variability, they're not going to respond well to it. So we wait for their answer. It was kind of rushing ahead, so I had to put this in there. Wait for their answer. If morning, call the check availability cal function, which is in here in retail. So to do this, you just add check calendar availability cal.com, and then you get your API key. Just go into your settings in cal.com, paste that in there, And then event type ID is when you're editing the event time in cal.com. You want to grab that from the URL. It was a little hard to find. So event types, voice AI consultation, that's going to be these numbers right here. So you just take these numbers and you put them in here, and then API key, settings, API keys, and then you just add retail key, never expires, copy it, paste it into retail, and then you also need to do the same thing for the book appointment calendar function key event type. So morning, afternoon, call that function for the next available afternoon or the next morning in their time zone. And then say, we basically give them two options. So I have Wednesday, January 4th at 10 a.m. Which one works best for you? Say this slowly and deliberately. Look at this. I'm on version 19 of this AI. So it's all about calling, testing, constantly reiterating, because it was just rushing through these. It was like, I have January 15th at 10 a.m. or January 3rd at 3 p.m. Which one works better? And it was just like, well, I can't even process that. So say this slowly and deliberately, wait for their choice. And then we get their choice basically, and then we go to contact confirmation. I also put pronunciation guidelines in here for the email. So when referencing the dot, the period symbol, in the email, always pronounce the period symbol as dot. For example, the text input of anthony.m.venturi@gmail.com would be pronounced as anthony.m.venturi@gmail.com. Always pronounce emails slowly, deliberately, and clearly. So, after we get their date and time, ask those questions. Is this the best number to reach you at? 99% of the time it's going to be. And then I have your email is that the best one to send the invite to, and then book. So we're calling this function here. You're booked for Wednesday, January 1st at 3 p.m. You'll get the Google Meet invite shortly. We'll show you exactly how your voice AI works. Then say the closing line. If anything else comes up, just call us back. Otherwise, we'll see you on, reiterates the appointment time again, and then have a great rest of your day. Customer first name. So end of call. So we'll deliver the closing line. We'll pause for 4 seconds to allow the customer to respond. And then if there's silence, it'll just end the call. It just makes it a little bit more naturally. Some of the objection handling here, the no callback policy we touched on earlier. Forbidden behavior is just the scheduling the callbacks. Scheduling a callback is like, let's just book an appointment at that point. Voicemail logic, touched on that. Only 1, 6, or 12. Voicemail behavior. Some scripts here for 1, 6, and 12. And then if for some reason the business niche doesn't come through, or they just type random nonsense in there, who knows, then it'll just say your business. A couple other things. In order to get this voicemail thing to work, I did have to turn on voicemail detection hang up if reaching a voicemail on the native settings. I did have this as a prompt to just reiterate what I was saying here, but it was confusing it. So my understanding of how retail works is that this prompt will just override this voicemail detection. So I just have this as hang up. These were all the standard settings. No knowledge base on this one, but you can add documents and transcripts in there to further educate your AI if you're having more complex conversations. Speech settings, I did put it as the call center background, makes it sound a lot more legit. Responsiveness is super fast. If you're using 5.2 fast, I would keep this at 1. It flows really nicely. I was using 4.0 real time, and I did have to turn this down because it was literally just too fast. But 5.2 fast here, responsiveness 1 gives you that 1300 millisecond latency, which it's almost indistinguishable. It's pretty crazy. All this stuff was the same. Just kept all this the same. This is all the same. And then I was using webhooks to deliver data to my workflows, but now that I'm just using this get call details, I don't need that anymore, and then not doing anything with MCPs right now. But that's pretty much it. It's a pretty complex workflow to fire off those 3 calls right away, but it's definitely going to increase your contact rate and your conversion rate. If you're running Facebook lead ads, you know that speed to lead is super crucial, and especially if you triple dial them, they know you mean business and you want to talk to them immediately. And let's just fire this off actually one time right now for me, and I'll show you how quickly it calls. All right, so we'll execute workflow, waiting for the trigger event. Okay, we'll run the test. Six seconds. Pretty crazy. So, if you guys want that for your business, drop a comment. Also, you can hit me up on my email in my channel description. I can help you build one of these for really any use case. This stuff will work for cold calling. It can handle inbound calls as well. If you want more content like this, hit the like button. It really helps the channel out. And then also the subscribe button. Thank you.